What's up, pretty lady?
Hello, how are you?
I am good. You know what? I'd be doing better if I had grabbed my cup of coffee the way that you have yours. I didn't do that. That's what I should have done. What is happening?
Oh, life is good. What about you?
Life is good. Life
Good.
is amazing for so many reasons. First and foremost, thank you so much for finding the time in your incredibly busy schedule to do this. I have been trying to get you, Fawn, for probably like a year and a half.
No
I
way.
have. I've been trying to get you for
Wow.
about a year and a half to sit down with me on Woman to Woman because I think you are, in my opinion, the epitome of not just being a woman, uh, but being a human being. And
Mm,
one of the reasons I even started doing Woman to Woman was in celebration of National Women's Month. But we
mm-hmm.
tend to use that to focus a lot on women of the past, people who have carved the way for others, but people who are long gone. And my thought
Absolutely.
process was, what about those of us who are still here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
People
yeah,
in the
yeah.
trenches every day working hard, trying to make it for other people. And,
Yeah.
I came across you, as many others did when the story broke about Jack Daniels, but I must put a comma there because the story that came out, which was, I guess, about him, but actually about Uncle Nearest, there was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
misinformation that came
Oh,
along with it.
yeah. We could thank Black Twitter for that.
Amen. We can thank them for a lot of things,
Black,
a
Black,
lot of
Black,
misinformation.
Black Twitter said, we don't need no facts. We just go run with a
None. We got,
story
and it was
that just looks right.
And let me tell you something. It was a good story on the
Uh-huh.
surface. On the surface, it was a good
Uh-huh.
story. It sounded good. It had everything that everybody
Yeah.
liked. The controversy, if it bleeds, it leads. And we were
Yep.
ready to pounce. And let me tell you
Yeah.
something. Being from Tennessee, I was ready to pounce too. I was like, how dare them? And then
Yeah.
I did what a journalist does. I did my
Yeah.
research. And that's when I came across you. And I said,
Oh.
now hold on a second. Let me get this straight. And as I began to go through your story, and as I began to listen to the interviews and read interviews, and then read, people who were talking about you, and I said, I've got to find a way to not only connect with this woman, but get her on my podcast, Woman to Woman, to have conversations. And to be
Mm,
clear, so we all know the accolades about Uncle Nearest. We
mhm.
know what you've done with this incredible story for the family, what you continue to do with the scholarships and making sure that the descendants on and on and on will profit,
Mhm.
which is mind boggling in and of itself, considering what you could do and what it could do for you, for your
Mhm.
family, and what you could walk away with. And
Yeah.
I just found you so fascinating that I
Mm,
really want to talk about you. I want to
cool.
talk about Fawn. I want to talk
Yeah.
about who Fawn was when she was 5. I read a quote that you talked about how now you're basically just an adult version of your
Ab
7-year-old self.
absolutely.
Tell me about that.
Absolutely. Well, it's a so much of what I do now. So for instance, when I was growing up, and in school, for whatever reason, they have you read novels. I still don't know why they do that when there's so much incredible historical information out there that we could really be teaching our kids actual true stories. Instead, we have them read and do reports on novels. And I refuse to do it because my family had one of those Encyclopedia Britannicas. Back in the day, they came door to
Yeah,
door to sell
door to
those things,
door.
right?
I think
And
we
that
all
was
had them because I had it
that
too.
was a big deal because that was expensive. And so I have this Encyclopedia Britannica, and they're trying to have me read Judy Blume novels and all this nonsense. And I'm like, no, I have Encyclopedia Britannica. I will read and I will write you a report on something that's in there. But to this day, I've never read a novel. And
What, never?
there's I can't do it. I like literally there is a legit mental block that when my mind knows this story is not true, that it feels like a waste of time to me. So
Wow.
because if I'm going to, if it's just going to be entertainment, I don't want to spend that kind of time reading. I'll watch a movie, but if it's going to be purely entertainment, that it's not actual factual, then I want that condensed into 2 hours. I
And be
want
done
that
with it. Like,
and be done
saw it, I'm
and be
good.
done.
That's
No,
so interesting.
I've
But you know
never.
what? That even that says a lot about how you are in your
Hmm.
business acumen, your sense, the way I don't know you personally, but I feel like I do through Instagram because I follow you religiously. And it's like when you get on something, you are straight to it. And
Yeah.
not saying that you don't focus on the creativity because you do, because the little thing with you and putting the whiskey in the holster and all that takes a creative mind. Love that. But the factual part that I took away from it was the advice that you had for Beyonce and LeBron, which was
Yeah.
straight joke, just no chaser, straight to the point. And it sounds like that's the kind of person that you were, and that's who you grew into be even now.
Yeah, no, it is for me. If you can't back it up with facts, and I watch so many people on social media work themselves into a tizzy about a subject, I'll then go and just do literally 2 minutes of research on that subject and realize that what they're working themselves into a tizzy about isn't
Ain't even
even
true.
accurate. So I just have a habit of, if I want to know something, I'm not getting it from someone else online on social. I'm going straight to the source, and the source is almost always available. And so that's just the nature of how I do things. Even with this industry, when I start talking about it, I was around a bunch of industry leaders not too long ago, and they had asked me to come speak for something. And I always get the question, how did you learn this so fast? And
Mm.
my question to everybody else is why are you learning stuff so slow? We literally have all of the information we need for everything at our fingertips. We don't have any excuses as African Americans anymore to start businesses without a
Yeah.
solid business plan with a SWOT analysis. There's literally templates online, and Chat GPT will fill in the rest if that's what you wanted to do. And so we are, for me, I believe that everything that we need to learn in life to succeed is in a book somewhere.
Yeah.
It has been left. I mean, every one of our American Titans left us their blueprints, every single one. Why do we not all know about Carnegie and Rockefeller and JP Morgan and Charles Schwab? And like, these people are on the sides of buildings, but we're not reading the blueprints they all left behind.
Well, Fawn,
Why?
if you remember the famous quote, I don't remember who said it, but if you want to keep something from black people, put it in a book.
Look,
You
listen,
that's what they said.
listen.
I don't know who
But
coined
here,
that term, but
But here's the thing, though, and I think that this is the part that we have to remember, because there's trauma around it, but we have to finally get to a place that we shake it. I think we've embraced that to a certain degree. And a part of that is because how we were portrayed for the first couple hundred years we were in this country, really the first 300 years we were in this
mhm.
country. And so there's this thought process that African Americans were not intelligent. That's what I love so much about the story of Nearest Green, is that if you look at his history, he could not read, he could not write, but we're still talking about him because of this level of excellence with his hands. How? It's because people forget that we couldn't read or write English.
Mhm.
That had nothing to do with our ability to read and write our own language. That
Correct.
had nothing to do with how intelligent we were. If you and I, as intelligent as we are, if someone picked us up today, dropped us off in a small village in China, and that village refused to teach us their language, all of a sudden we're dumb.
Or not only that, if we tried to speak our language to one another, we'd be beaten or killed. So I think
Exactly.
also that too. Let me ask you this. You spoke a little bit about the trauma, right?
Mhm.
Going back to your childhood, can you think of any trauma that formed that tenacious spirit that you have?
It's funny because I don't, and it is. I feel extraordinarily blessed because in every aspect of my life, God taught me very early on, take the gems with you. And I use it as an example because I'm old enough to, Super Mario Brothers, everything that was on Atari, that's what I played, right? So, all the kids now, I don't even know if the kids now even know like Sega Genesis and
I don't think they
PlayStation,
do.
right? Right. But you got to go back to like original joysticks and the thing that we learned in those games was to get to the next level, you had to pick up the gems that were left from the challenges that you overcame in the prior screen, right? So you have whatever challenges, you get through the challenges, you pick up the gems, you take the gems and you take them to the next level. And that is something that we're not great at doing. We stay at this level because we're still just trying to deal with the challenges at the level. Look, grab the gems and go to the next level. And
Yes.
so that's what I have done my entire life. Now, what I will say, not necessarily childhood, but when I was 20 years old, I tried to commit suicide twice. And I'm very, very open about this. I think it's important that people understand my background, that I left home when I was 15, dropped out of high school shortly thereafter, lived in 3 homeless shelters, and lived in Jordan Downs and Watts. That was the first place I went when I left home. And then I lived in 3 homeless shelters after that. And by the time I was 20, I tried to commit suicide twice. The one moment I will say always rings true. Every room that I walk into, everything that I do, there is a level of confidence that I speak with that is unshakable, and that I'm pretty. My husband used to describe me to people as unflappable, and I was like, "Are you, unflappable?" He's like, "Babe, you are unflappable," and where that I believe that came from is when I tried to commit suicide the second time and it
Mm,
didn't work. I came to two conclusions after that. The first one was that I had tried to take myself out twice and I wasn't able to, which meant God had me here for a very specific purpose. And the faster I got to understanding what that was, the easier the rest of my life would be, or the more
mm,
fulfilling the rest of my life would be, because what I wasn't going to do is keep trying to take myself out and continue to be unsuccessful.
correct.
And so I needed to figure out, why does God have me here, and let me lean into that. That was the first thing. The second thing, and I'm sure you've heard me say this before, is that I made the determination after that, that if I couldn't take me out, nobody could take me out, which meant that I'm going to walk through life not focused on what a person could do to me, a company could do to me, Satan could do to me. I'm going to focus on who everybody has to check with
Yeah.
in order to harm me, and that's God. And so my focus is never on past challenges, past traumas, past. It's not even focused on what's in front of me as a challenge. I am always focused on the God that everybody has to go through to even touch me.
Now, see, let me say this to you and be very candid. This is one of the reasons why I think having a woman to woman conversation is so necessary. You know, I did not know that about you until recently because of a
Mm-hmm.
post that you did. And when you were, and congratulations, by the way, on Love and Whiskey, which is
Thank
phenomenal.
you.
And then
Thank
the fact that you
you.
broke all of these records, not only the New York Times bestseller, but then the Guinness Book of World Records with the signing and
Yeah.
all of that. I watched
Yeah.
you go through that. But it wasn't until I saw a recent post and you
Yeah.
talked about the suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I have never really said out loud to anyone is that I too tried to commit suicide. And I
Yeah.
have kept it a secret out of shame, out of fear, and to some extent out of disbelief to myself that I, who is supposed to be just like you, we all are. We're supposed to be
Yeah.
our own greatest protectors, right?
Yeah.
We are,
Yeah.
first and foremost. And if we would do that to ourselves, how
Yeah.
shameful. But when I
Yeah.
heard you say that, I thought, why are we couldn't be the only ones? And why
No.
aren't more people, especially women of color, successful or not, I think you can be successful in your own right, in your own field, doing what you love. But we never talk about these types of lows to the point that you almost took yourself out. And
Yeah.
I have listened to people say that, and I would refuse to admit, that I have been in that place of
Yeah.
there's nothing better. There couldn't possibly be anything better. So I'm going to do this because that has to be better. And you say
Yeah.
it was your faith that saw you through that.
Yeah.
When it comes to speaking more candidly um, to other people who are going through that, um, do you think that we do enough of that? Do you think that the answer is always faith? Because there are some people who are just lost and they don't even have that and they don't even know where to begin. How do you
Yeah.
start that kind of conversation with someone like that?
Yeah. So I tell people all the time, if you don't believe in God, I can't help you.
Mm,
I'm cool if you're agnostic, right? Because at least you acknowledge that there is someone greater than you that is controlling all of this. But if you believe that things started with a big bang,
yeah.
and you don't go back to say, well, where did the matter come from
Yeah. What made
that
the bang?
crashed into each other?
Yeah,
Like,
correct.
when did the beginning begin to begin?
Right.
And if you believe that the beginning began to begin with something that is a form, then I can't have a conversation with you. I mean, I can love you and I can respect you, but I can't have a conversation with you that would be helpful to you, because the root and foundation of my life is my faith. So you can ask me any question, and I guarantee if we keep going from the surface level to where whatever that answer came from, there is a level of faith that is in that. And again, my faith is Christian, and I am not a person who believes that my faith is the only one that you can believe in and still be able to tap into God. I simply don't believe it. There are certain aspects of the Bible that I read, and I do believe it is absolutely the inspired word of God. But there are certain things in there that I have to acknowledge that there were a group of white men in Tunisia, Africa, what we now know to be Tunisia. Is a group of priests that sat together and decided this chapter is in, this chapter is
Is
out,
out.
this
Yes.
chapter is in, this chapter is out. So the council up there that made this determination, I always have to wonder what was left out that would explain some of the things that don't make sense with what was left in, right?
Yes.
But I know my life has been too much about my faith and my belief for me to abandon that because I knew a group of men made some changes, right? So I work with what I do know, but more importantly, I work with my own life and my own relationship with God. And I have watched him do too many mini miracles, MINI miracles, right? I've watched too many in my own life to be foolish enough to deny it. Like even this video that you were just talking about with the whiskey holster and the that's gone crazy, ridiculous
It has.
viral, right? Let me tell you, and this is why I say everything goes back to God for me. So for that particular post, it was really a matter of, all right, we are launching Nears Green Tennessee whiskey during a period of time when everybody says that you cannot cut through the noise, because this is where all the spirit conglomerates, this is where they spend all their money, this is where
Mhm.
they market like crazy, this is why they released, I mean, what company releases two celebrity brands 3 weeks apart? You just got way too much money at that point. And I'm positive more will be coming out in a flurry. So this period of time, OND, if you're an independent, they will tell you just stay out of this and wait till January,
Wait your
because
turn.
wait your turn, because this is where they're going to spend half of their marketing budget at least, is just in this 3 months of the year. And so the question was, well, we need to release this at this time frame. This is what makes sense to us. So how do we cut through the noise? And literally, it was midnight, maybe 10 days ago. It was midnight, and I sent a text message to my leadership team, And it was literally exactly what y'all saw in the video, down to the exact words, is what I put in there, where the beat drops, where the who's in it, all the rest of that stuff. Literally, it came in a matter of seconds. And we didn't pull in anybody on the outside. I didn't ask for no opinions. Brought in my sister who oversees our digital content, said, hey, I need you to fly up from Atlanta, and pulled in our social media people who just literally take cameras around the distillery. And we have horses on site, brought in some folks to ride them. And it was like, but here's this is the point of it, is that there are certain things I was very intentional about. I could see the whole vision, right? But the little Easter eggs that people have been finding in the videos, I didn't plan that. The things that people are like, oh my God, Beyonce, her bottle is a horse. And on Renaissance, she was on a glass horse. And this chick just rode in on a real horse. I literally didn't think about that because it's my horse.
Yeah.
So it's like literally that's my horse that I'm on. And what I was doing was creating something that went with regulators. Like the whiskey holster, everybody's like, oh my God. I mean, the number, we're really having to now produce whiskey holsters because of how wild this thing has gone. Girl, that is a cell phone case that I found at Boot Barn. I'm walking in Boot Barn to go get the hat the night before to film the video. And I was like, I really want to have something to put it in, but we couldn't find a gun holster where it could fit in. And I'm walking, and literally at the bottom, there's all these cell phone cases that have clips. And I was like, huh,
This
I
might
bet you
work.
if I bet you if I cut the sides, opened it up, and had somebody add leather straps, I got a whiskey holster. It literally, the whiskey holster was being created at the same time we were pulling the horses out to ride them. And so these are the things where when I look at just the little, even that last shot where it's got the bottle and it's got the logo, the
Uh-huh.
horseshoe with it, and then right behind it, the distillery building, it has the exact same horseshoe. That wasn't planned. We didn't set that shot up like that. We didn't notice until after the shot when we got back and we were just editing it. We were like, that is a brilliant shot. But I promise
It
you,
is
we didn't do
brilliant.
that shot. Do you
It
see what I'm
is.
saying?
I
And
know.
so,
Well, I knew all of I use the word kismet because I believe
mhm,
destiny. And when
absolutely.
I listen to you, and I'm not going to give it away because I want you to tell it because I was blown away by it. But I too am one of those people that I firmly believe that we all are here for a purpose. And if you
Absolutely.
push towards, if you don't know what it is, pray about it, meditate, and then begin to just move in that direction. And the universe itself, right, with the hand of God, will bring everything into motion. And I say that
Absolutely.
because I've seen it in my life, just like you. And when I heard you talk about September 5th,
Yes,
I
yes.
thought nothing but God.
Oh,
Nothing
absolutely.
but God in terms of connecting those dots. You cannot tell me that it is coincidental. You
No.
cannot tell me that there is some strange reason. Tell me
Hmm.
about that date and and just connect the dots for us.
No, absolutely. The one thing that I think a lot of us have missed in this more new age type of lifestyle is that so much of what we talk about the universe, it's not wrong. If you jump from a building, the law of gravity is going to dictate that you're going down. For every action, there is a reaction. This is the law, right? There are certain laws that God put into place and the universe carries it out. He don't have to do anything. He's already set it into motion. He doesn't, if you jump from a building, he doesn't have to say that person needs to fall. He created a universe that does that within our bodies, the intricacies of our bodies. He doesn't have to do this stuff because he created our bodies to be able to have cell regeneration, renewal, all the rest of this stuff. If we get a bruise, we don't have to say, God, heal the skin, because it's going to naturally happen because he
Exactly.
created our bodies to do that, right? And
Right.
so
As long
I
as you
think
don't get in the way.
as long,
As
listen,
long as you don't get in the way.
as long as you don't get in the way. So when it comes to September 5th, when I began doing the research, And people have to read Love and Whiskey to understand how so many things unfolded, where you're just like, that don't make no sense. How's the original Jack Daniel Distillery #7? How's that on the market for 15 months and Jack Daniels doesn't buy it? Like, there are certain things that you just are, when people read it in the book, they're going to go, that makes no sense whatsoever. But it only doesn't make sense if you take God out of it, if you take purpose out of it. And so the September 5th connection is that when I began doing the research of how Nearest's story disappeared, because when Jack was alive and when his descendants ran the distillery, the story of Nearest Green was at the forefront. Everybody knew who Nearest was. Everybody knew who his boys George and Eli were. This was not anything that was a secret swept under the rug. And it wasn't until the last of Jack's descendants in 78 to pass away that the story disappeared between 78 and 79. And we know it disappeared because one of Nearest's descendants used to bring friends from college over to the distillery so that they would hear in the tour about her ancestor. And she called her daughter in 79 and said, they whitewashed my great grandfather out of this story. Well, in 79, one of Nearest's descendants also went to go work for the distillery and was surprised to learn that nobody at the distillery talked about her ancestor anymore. And so we know exactly when the story disappeared. But when that happened, his granddaughter, Mammy Green, said, oh, no, 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 we're not going to forget what my grandfather did. And so she'd have people at her house every day. She'd make them supper, which here in the South is at noon. And so she would make them supper, like full on smothered chicken
Oh,
and gravy,
yes.
and like full on meals. I don't think anybody was working after they had supper at her house, but so there are all these workers, including her brothers and cousins, that would come from the distillery every day, and she would make them full meals. And she made sure to always have this conversation with her kids and her grandkids. My granddaddy made the whiskey for that man. And she would not allow that to disappear. And she lived a stone's throw from Jack Daniels. So she wouldn't let the story die there in Lynchburg. And then you have this reporter, this white reporter from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, who comes to Lynchburg, Tennessee in 65 and 66 to write the authoritative biography of Jack Daniel. It's published in 1967, but every person who he interviewed were the people who knew Jack, the people who touched Jack. Jack died early in life. He was young when he passed away, but there's so many people who either touched him or his nephew, who he turned the distillery over to 4 years before he passed away, or his great nephews, 4 great nephews who ended up running the distillery. There were so many people that touched all of them. And so it was easy for them to know what was important to go in this book that was about Jack Daniel. And this author included Nearest and his boys more times than Jack's own family. That's in 67. Then you have Clay Risen, the New York Times reporter, who originally broke the story in 2016 with a headline that said, Jack Daniels embraces a hidden ingredient, help from a slave. And then you have a photo of Jack, the only photo that he ever took, the only known photo that he ever took with other people in it. He cedes the center position of the entire photo to a black man. And so then you have that, and you have Clay Risen who jumps it off. And then you have me who then reads this story while I'm in Singapore, and for reasons that make no sense to me, because it's not a story I would initially be drawn to other than to read it, go into a little rabbit hole of research, and to come out of my rabbit hole and get back to work. And so I read it, went into a rabbit hole of research, and literally never came out. And so we essentially are what you would consider the four keepers of the story of Nearest Green. It's the reason why those stories have continued even after the story disappeared at Jack Daniel Distillery in 78. It's because of Mammy and Ben Green, no relation to Nearest, and Clay Risen and me. And so as I began doing research, I came across an article in the Moore County News or the Lynchburg paper or whatever, and Mammy Green was turning 99, and it says everybody send her birthday cards. And so I looked at the date, and it was September 5th, 1901 is when she was born. And I thought, well, that's interesting because I already knew from reading Jack Daniel's legacy that the author, Ben Green, his biographer, was born September 5th, 1902. And the only reason that date even registered for me is I was born September 5th, 1976. And so we've got three of us all born on September 5th. And I thought, this can't be coincidence, but oh my gosh, this is wild. And then my husband texts me one day and he says, Babe, you probably already know this, but did you know you and Clay Risen were born on the exact same day? September 5th,
That's
1976. Clay
crazy.
was born here in Nashville. I was born in Hollywood, California. And we were all born on the day celebrated historically until more recently when they began celebrating the entire month of September as his birthday. We were all born on the day celebrated as the birth date of Jack Daniel.
That's
And so
crazy.
I looked at this and said, okay, well, I wasn't sure who was pulling puppet strings in heaven before, but
Now you
I'm,
know.
now I'm pretty confident.
Jack is
And
up there,
when
Mamie up there.
everybody, but when I looked at the photo, when I looked at the original photo, that Black Twitter, it immediately said, you know, Jack stole the recipe, he hid the
Mhm.
slave. But when I looked at the photo, and you're talking about a photo taken circa 1904, what that photo said to me is Jack Daniel was smart enough to know that America at some point would try to write out his mentor, his teacher, his friend. And the only way that he, even after he was gone, could make sure that didn't happen is no one would be able to deny the one photo that he took with other people. And
Correct.
the fact that the entire photo centers around a Black man.
Well, I,
That
I
was his, yeah,
instantly, it caused me to question when I looked at it and I was thinking about the time period. And I
yeah,
thought, we all understand what positions, like literal positions of power, mean. The
yes,
most powerful person is always in the center, always in the
always.
middle. And the fact
Yep,
that a white man was adjacent to the center,
yes,
and
yes,
everyone else, to me, after I really dug into it, I realized they were insulating him like a
yes,
wall of protection of
yes,
here is the center of our truth
yes,
right here.
yes,
And it can
right
never
here.
be denied. And I
Yes,
find it so fascinating that here you were. I don't know at what point you were in your life when you were in Singapore, but I read about how you had a successful PR firm and how, obviously, we know your father as a legendary producer at Motown and all of the ways your life could have gone, all of the things that you could have been doing, which by the way, I found it interesting that you said, you know what, I'm just going to become an employee instead of an employer. I was like, who does that?
oh,
You.
oh, I mean, me,
but
because listen, being an employer is a lot. The burden of being employed, you're taking all of the risk. It's why most people don't become employers, is because when everybody else's family that works for you is able to sleep at night, right?
you can't.
If you don't, well, I do. I sleep really well, but that's nothing but the grace of God because I am literally always in the eye of the storm. Like every day of my life is the eye in the storm. And so being able to be able to sleep, and I sleep well. I don't, I don't have sleep that is interrupted. I sleep. And that is simply my faith. That is my
Well, yeah,
belief
but I
that when
also
I
think
am
it's I
sleeping, God
also
is
think
working.
you have to also accept the fact that you were built for this.
Yes, I was.
You
I
can
was
you give
absolutely
God
built for
credit
this.
for that 100%, but the truth of the matter also is you were built for this. You can't
Absolutely.
like and God made you that way. He put that into you as it is always written that he
Yeah,
knew who you were before you were born and not just
absolutely.
anybody, right?
Yep.
Like you're not 6'1", 6'2", you're not some white burly man who walks in. You are a petite black woman who walks in
Hmm.
like, okay, so this is what we getting ready to do.
Right
And
now.
I have no doubt that you have walked into
Yeah.
many rooms and the question was, who is this black woman and who does she think she talking to?
Yeah,
I
but let me
know
tell
you. Let me tell you
but
something. I'm from
yeah,
Tennessee, okay?
yeah,
I know the
yeah,
history of Tennessee. Born and raised
yeah,
there. I know. I went to MTSU, so in order to get home to Chattanooga, I had to go past Jack Daniels. I had to
yeah,
go
yeah,
through Shelbyville. I
yeah,
know that terrain well. And when I thought about what you have now done in terms of the land that you bought, what you
yeah,
have placed there, what you have built right in the heart of what
yeah,
many people would say. I mean, Tennessee's still a red state. Let's not get it twisted. But the
absolutely.
fact that you, this powerful force from whence you came, from Hollywood,
Yeah,
right? To
yeah,
now, in the thick of things every day, but sleeping well tells me you were built
yeah,
for this.
absolutely. And let me tell you what I love about red states. Love. We don't have the microaggressions y'all have in the blue states.
Mm-mm.
I know if I'm dealing with a racist. I know if I'm dealing with somebody who's going to try to put their thumb on the scale. There, I appreciate you waving that Confederate flag and
In
letting me
my
know
face.
exactly who
Yeah,
you are. So I feel real safe. If a cop pulls me over, Shelbyville, Lynchburg, Tennessee, I feel the safest I feel in the world. I know exactly who everybody is in the South. You know how to deal with them, you know how to talk to them, you know exactly where they stand. But you come into the blue states and this fake liberalism, we talk about that another day.
then there's that. We could have a whole conversation on
Listen,
that.
it's my favorite part of my favorite movie is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And it's that part where you got, Sidney Poitier and Tracy Spencer is this plays this liberal guy leading everybody forward, and all everybody is fair and black people are equal and da 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 da. And you have the Monsignor, the priest guy, and he's like, I always knew this was phony liberalism. because until you faced with it, with your own family, with your own situation, you can judge other people and tell them what they should do and what
That's
they
right.
shouldn't do. And then when it comes knocking on your door,
That's
all of
right.
a sudden you
It's
got
a
to
whole
face, oh, what is it that we do believe? And so moving from California to Shelbyville, Tennessee, well, first moved to Lynchburg, Tennessee. I got to tell you, best decision in ever. And I could not imagine living in California again. I could not imagine it. It is, I absolutely love where I am. But to your point, God built me to be here, because what I have been able to do in this community is to get people to see each other as beyond race. You come to Nears Green Distillery. I remember in the beginning, we would get complaints from African Americans who would come because they would expect to see nothing but African
but black
Americans.
folks.
Like
Yeah.
that's it is. This is the story. The story is black. The owner is black. The founder is black. The master blender is black. Everybody here should be black. And they would be really bothered that the tour would begin with three white women that were all over the age of 65, between 65 and 81. And so I had to point out to them their bigotry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's uncomfortable to have a person of color point out to you your bigotry toward white people. But you can't ask to be treated equal,
Correct.
but then turn around
Well, here's the
and
thing
be a
though.
bigot.
I think had you not come from California,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that you would have had that same mindset. Because when you're born in the South,
Yeah,
there is a particular way that you think. And
I agree.
I only learned that. I was born in the South, although I'm adopted. My biological family are New Yorkers. Had I been born in New York, I don't know how I'm a unicorn. Let me just say that
Yeah,
off
yeah,
the
yeah,
top.
yeah, yeah,
But I knew the mentality when I left the South, when I got to New York, I realized, what have I been thinking? And then when I
yeah,
moved here to California, almost 9 years ago now, I really began to sit into how I thought growing
yeah,
up in the South. And so I
Yeah.
think when you say you have to show them their bigotry, not their racism, because there is a difference,
There's a
right?
difference.
But
Yeah.
their bigotry, I think you have to step outside of your zip code, dare I say, even your own state, to sometimes understand the mental chains that you have, not only in your way of thinking and processing, but even in your emotions. So that's why I
Yeah.
say you were built for this. I think you needed to be born in the area that you were born, to see the things
Yes.
that you see through that prism, to then be
Yep.
able to come and teach and
Yeah.
unite. Because what I
Yeah.
love also about your story is that it is a story of unification as well. I love the
Hmm.
fact that you refuse to just say, I'm going to make, I mean, I'm a very smart, business savvy woman. I can make all of these decisions, make all of this money, and me and my family will be set for life. You're not doing that. You're bringing together an entire community, not just in Tennessee, but globally, and
Hmm.
showing us how we can all work together and how we can all be decent human beings. And I love the fact
Absolutely.
that I'm sure Uncle Nearest, Jack, all of them are sitting around thinking, wow, in this time, right
Hmm.
now, in this time, when you consider where we are in this country, there is
Yeah.
a place in Shelbyville, Tennessee,
Yes, indeed.
where you
Yes,
got these
indeed.
people intermingling and doing what we love to do best, and that is fellowship, that is eating
Yeah.
and drinking and being merry and life and the pursuit of happiness and that
Absolutely.
liberty in between, all because of a young Black woman who was moved by a story that had absolutely nothing to do with her.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
takes a special kind of person. And that's why I wanted to talk to you to figure out, where does that come from? Is it the 7-year-old? Is
It
it
comes
is
from
like, where does
it,
that come from?
it comes from being available.
Mm,
It comes from being available. So many people say, I want to know my purpose, but then they're not available to God to do what it is that He's called them to do because they're too busy doing this, doing that. They're too busy seeing things through a prism that doesn't involve all people. It is very difficult for us, and it just drives me crazy when we try to build businesses just for us, by us. Like Fubu was a cool clothing line, but you can't. Fubu sold to white people. There's a reason for that. This country is 60% white. And so if you don't know how to build a business that can reach 60% of this country, you're already setting yourself up for failure. That is, I mean, there is no if and buts about it. It's the same reason that all these companies that have been run by white men forever and ever and surrounded themselves with them, that if they didn't figure out how to integrate, and I am going to say integrate because that's what it is, that women into it, they're losing a massive consumer group because we're over 50% of the population. And if they didn't figure out how to integrate people of color, now you're talking about women and people of color, 70% of this country. So we have to figure out how to do what they've now had to learn how to do, which is to fully change our mindsets so that we are going after the entire population because the population is changing
it is
rapidly. And,
rapidly.
and so for me, I think where people miss is they think, I'm not happy right now, but if this happens, and this happens, I will be happy. That's not how happiness works. Happiness works with you being completely content exactly where you are in that moment with exactly what you have in the exact situation. And it is bringing your own sunshine to the picnic. That is what happiness is. And that carries through every aspect of your life. If you're not happy today, you're not going to be happy down the road. The same is the case with purpose. In every portion of our life, in every time frame of our life, we have a purpose that we have the ability to be passionate about in that moment. But because so many of people are waiting for the big purpose, like what I am doing right now that people are seeing, they look at that and they go, oh, this is her purpose. Oh no, I have lived 48 years. Well, not 48, but 30 years, right? From the time I was 18, 36, from the time I was 20, uh, uh, 38. 38,
You're
20.
worse
Yeah.
than me. You are
20,
worse than me. I
28.
do the
Sorry.
same thing.
28. Okay. 28. Because I got to remember my age. So for the last 28 years, I had to go back to suicide attempts. So that's 20 years old. So the last 28 years, right? I have lived my purpose out in every year of that. And every year my purpose is different. Immediately after trying to commit suicide, my purpose was to discover, who am I and why am I here? So for 6 months, I literally did not listen to any music at all. I did not turn on television. I did not go to the movies. I did not go out to dinner for 6 months straight. I gathered every book I thought would be helpful to help me to understand, who am I and why am I here? And I read so many books because someone who did not go through what I'm going through could not give me advice. So I didn't go and seek people. I sought out books, because what's easy about books is as you're reading it, if it doesn't resonate with your soul, you could just toss it, move to the next book.
Right.
And so I was able to pull things. And there was one book that really changed everything for me, called Please Understand Me Two, the part two. Because I guess there's a Please Understand Me part one. I only know about part two, right? And so this book, Please Understand Me Part Two, was written by the same people who did the personality test, the Myers-Briggs personality test. Well, the reason why that was important is that once I did the personality test and then read what it said that I was based on that, my mind was blown, because I was like, how did they know this about me? How did they know? So the Lord literally fashioned me in a manner that followed the same, like when I look at, I'm INTJ. And so when they go back in history and they look at who's INTJ, you've got MLK, Gandhi. They say Jesus, but I don't know how you could say what Jesus
I was
was.
just
But
like,
anyway,
what
look,
test did
look,
Jesus take?
look. Who
Hold on.
who who
Somebody
gave
lied
Jesus the
somewhere.
personality
Right.
test?
And
And
first of all, who
yeah,
gonna try to
yeah,
make Jesus take a
right,
test?
right. So, but when you go back, once I understood that my personality for a woman is less than 1% of the population, I stopped expecting people to understand me. So this is
Hmm.
the thing, is people go around life trying to get people to understand their perspective.
Okay, we're gonna pause right there and we're gonna have you repeat that again in slow. But let me tell you why, because I am the same way.
Yeah.
And I need I don't want to say it. I want you to say that again slowly and deliberately, because there is purpose and power in
Yeah.
that statement.
Yes. Knowing my personality and learning that I was less than 1% of the population, I stopped expecting people to understand me. I stopped desiring for people to understand me. And so many people think that a sense of belonging has to do with people respecting your point of view or understanding how you think. I never have an expectation that someone is going to agree with me,
Mhm.
because my worldview is different. I'm less than 1% of the population. But what most people will discover is, if they do their personality test, so many people who feel misunderstood, the reason they feel misunderstood is the majority of the population has not come across you before. They don't know you. So to ask someone to understand how you think and how you talk and how you move,
Mhm. It's
when
like asking Jesus to take a test. It
exactly, exactly,
ain't gonna happen.
exactly.
I love that though, but I will say two things. First, I always discourage people from seeking out happiness.
Yes.
And the reason I do that is because I know happiness is an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Emotions are fleeting, they are fickle, they are up, they are down. And if you build your house on happiness, it is like building your house on sinking sand. You're
Yeah.
never going to know when it's going to be there, when it's not. I firmly believe in building your life around your purpose. Now, that requires work. And unfortunately, a lot of people today won't take the time that you did to find out, who am I and what is that purpose? Because I think we like things easy. We want someone else to tell us what our purpose is, because that way we don't have to do the work. We don't have to read the books. We don't have to take the time. Someone can just sum us up by whatever they think, we are, by how we treated them or what they saw us do or what they read about us. We're always looking outside of ourselves. So I commend you for doing the work, for trying to figure out on your own, because at the end of the day, only you can know who you are. You are the one who
Yeah.
lives up here where we
Yeah.
can't see, where we can't dwell, and you
Yeah.
know what's in here.
But
So
here
you've got
here's
to do that work.
absolutely, here's where I do challenge folks. I think that no one should be looking for their purpose. And I'll tell you why. Because our purpose is who we are. When you think about our birth, right? Our mother was born with every egg that she was ever going to have in life to have children. She was literally in her mother's womb with every egg in her ovary. So, I mean, think about that.
Mhm.
Nothing else grew once she came out, right? That everything was, and that's how we were born, is everything that we needed, we had before we were born. Our purpose is wrapped up in simply being available to what comes to us, what is drawn to us. People would say what is attracted to us. We have to understand that our purpose is just being exactly who God called us to be and being available in every moment. I could go through year after year from 1996 until now, and I could tell you what my purpose was in that year. The one consistency from my purpose is me.
Mm. And see, I think that's where a lot of people probably get stuck, because I do believe that you are wrapped up in your purpose. It's in you, and I love that. I read somewhere that you said that finding out what your gifts are, go back to what
Yes,
your gifts were when you were a child. And most people who are successful, it is tied back to who they were as children. And it's 100%
yes,
true. And I think it is because when you, for the most part, not everyone had a great childhood. I understand that. But I also believe that every child had moments where they believed miracles could happen. I
yeah,
believe every child had moments where they thought anything was possible, because we didn't believe or know about gravity. So we thought we could fly if we tried. We thought we could be the Easter bunny. We thought like, there was no boundaries on what we thought we could do or be as children. And I think as you grow older, you live a little bit. And I think as you begin to listen to people and the noise around you, you lose some of that wonderment and you lose some of that magic that you had in believing. And I think that's how you lose yourself. And so you
a-
begin to allow other people to tell you who you are, who you should
absolutely.
behave like. And that then somehow becomes your purpose. Because if somebody tells you, oh my God, you have such an analytical mind, you're always analyzing me, you should, yeah, I don't know, be a bookkeeper. Now all of a sudden you
Yeah.
think you should be a bookkeeper. Maybe that ain't your calling. Why are you listening to them?
Listen, well, here's the thing. What child do you know didn't have imaginary friends? So we treat imaginary friends as figments of children's imagination, right? But how is it possible without anybody telling anybody to have an imaginary friend that every kid has imaginary friends? Has
Yeah.
anybody thought that for every child, God has surrounded them with angels to be
Angels.
with them from the very beginning? And it is not until you have some parent that says, stop playing with imaginary friends, and that now you've put up a wall between you and that spiritual world.
Yeah.
And it's that spiritual world that actually carries you throughout your life and make sure that you remain in purpose. So really, so many of us really have to get back to childhood where we had the imaginary friends who supported what we did at that time.
Let me tell you
The
something, Fawn.
reason why,
I got imaginary friends right now. Okay,
listen,
so you
listen, I'm not mad. I'm not mad.
and I talk to them every day, and they talk back. So people who come to my house can hear me. And they're like, "Who is she talking to?" Don't worry about it. I'm talking to my friends, and they are coaching me through some things right now. Mind your
Yeah.
business, stay in your lane. But
Yes.
I think that's super important. Let me ask you this, and then I'll let you go. I know you have a busy day. For the person out there, male, female, black, white, whatever they are, or whatever in between, who can't find their imaginary friends. Maybe
Hmm.
they have been tossed, by life as we all in some shape, form, or fashion have. But they know they have a vision or a gift in them. And
Hmm.
they hear or see a story like yours and they're like, damn, that could be me. Like, what would you say to them to be the first steps to get the gift, to number one, identify the gift, to get it out,
Hmm.
and then both from personal advice, like as a human, as a woman, as just an individual, but then from a business perspective,
Hmm.
what would be the advice that you would give for the very first, not no, because everybody always gives the advice for the first step. What's the second step?
So I don't know what advice is for the first step. I can tell you what I believe it to be on the first step, and I don't know what people say. I believe that finding contentment exactly where you are is what opens your eyes to your gifts. It's what opens your eyes to your purpose. If you are constantly striving, I love the fact that you said don't chase happiness. If you're constantly striving for happiness versus being content in exactly where God called you to be, in that very moment of where God called you to be, you may have, $3 to your name. But if you can figure out how to be content with that $3, let me tell you how that $3 will multiply into nine, and that nine will multiply into 81, and that 81 will. So I say the first step is truly, it's Philippians 4:11-13. I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstance. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. That is where you begin as far as I'm concerned. Because the reason why my life has continued to expand and to open is because I am content in every moment, whether I have something or I don't. I have been content in that moment. And when you are in that place, this is that when people talk about being grounded, that's
Hmm.
really what that is being content in the exact place that you're at. And that is what allows your purpose in that moment to come to you. Your gifts, it's what opens your eyes up to your gifts, those things that you have that's unique to you that other people around you don't have. If you are not content, you're busy focusing and striving on other stuff. It's hard for you to see what about you is so unique. What about you is so different? And that's your purpose is always going to be tied to what is unique to you.
I love, 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 love that. I do. I'm telling you, I have so much admiration and respect for you. Even though we've never met in person. I watch you and I relive my childhood. I had a horse when I was a kid. I was born and raised on a farm in in Ottawa, Tennessee. A working farm at
Mm.
that. We churned our butter, we milked the cows, we slopped the pigs. I had a family friend that we called, he was our Uncle Oscar. He headed up the Tennessee walking horses during the parades. And like, I'm a country girl
Wow.
through and through. So when I see you and your fabulous sister, Victoria, who I have to thank because she sent me some Uncle Nearest for my COVID parties when we were all social distancing and I
Oh,
was doing Party on the Rocks, Fighting
yeah.
Rocks. She sent me some stuff and I
Oh,
was like, "Oh, that's my Sarah coming through." But when I see you guys sitting on the porches and I see the brunches there, I there's so much in me that is filled because I love who you are. I love what you stand for. And I love the fact I remember reaching out to you. Like I said, it's been about a year and a half ago on social media. And you said, I will do it. And you said, I just have to
yeah,
find the time, but I will. And then I read a quote that you said, I do what I say and I say what I do. And I said, I'll be
yeah.
damned. She told the truth because she come, my sister coming through. She coming through. I
Mm,
appreciate it. I
absolutely.
applaud you for all that you're doing, not just for the Uncle Nearest family, but for the community. Because I think that's what you're doing. I think what's most important for people to remember it is the footprint that you leave behind and the lasting
Yeah,
impression. That is what legacy is about. It is about remembering the great great granddaughter and then the great 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 greats and all of those people. And it is these stories that will be told long after we are gone. You know, that facility will be there. That bottle will be on shelves and people will remember Fawn Weaver and they will say, wow, she was a powerful force. You know, she was, you know, a
mhm,
ball of fire. And I will always be proud to say that I had the opportunity to sit and spend some time and speak to you woman to woman. And I hope one day I'll be able to come to Tennessee, take a tour of the beautiful facility, sip on a little
yes,
something, something, and maybe ride a horse or
yes.
two. I mean, we'll see.
Let's
Let
do
me work
it.
it out. I would love to
Let's
do
do
that.
it.
But I thank you for your time. I know you have a lot to do. Um, I got to
Thank
go
you.
tackle some political issues today because you know we getting close.
Oh boy. Oh
So
boy.
we
Oh
we
boy.
get
Have fun with that. I'm
I
happy that's
know,
not a
right?
part of my purpose. I be living through peace every election season because that ain't a part of my purpose, and I'm not getting in the middle of others.
I know that's right, but I think even that's a word. I think that's a word of understanding what your
Mhm.
lane is and make sure that you run in that because we all got one. We all have a
Yeah.
lane, right? And
Yeah.
as long as you fill
Yeah.
that lane up, you good. So I wish you continued
Yep.
peace and happiness.
Thank you.
And if you ever need me for anything, I don't care what it is.
Uh,
I'm over here in the holler. All you got to do is just shout.
I appreciate you. I
You got it,
appreciate you.
girl.
Ditto.
All
Thank
right. Take
you.
care, sis.
All right. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Awesome.